Welcome back, everybody, to the Westlake Hornets Teambuilder Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. As today we've got ourselves the recruiting special here for season number 15. Even though the series is almost over, these recruiting specials are still very important to see some players who could make early impacts and guys who could make big impacts down the line in the sim seasons as we round out this dynasty. This is a very fun recruiting class for a lot of really cool players who I am excited to share with you guys about. So without further ado, let's get this one started. And before we talk about these first two prospects, I'd like to set the stage for them. As obviously you have all probably seen in the Jaguars franchise, rookie quarterback Loko Onwusu lighting the world on fire. Well, he is a pair of younger brothers who happen to be twins. The first one is Loko Onwusu. Loko plays quarterback. Not only is he the top quarterback in the country, but he is the number 1 player regardless of position in this entire recruiting class. Loko has already signed with the Michigan Wolverines, the rival of where Coco played. Obviously, Loko Onwusu played his college ball at Michigan State. His younger brother will be playing still in the state of Michigan, but not for the Spartans. Loko Onwusu is pretty much Coco, but taller and left-handed. Super talented kid. Here he is. Great mobility, great arm strength, quite accurate as well. Really gives you all you look for in a quarterback. But there is another brother in the family. This is Loko Onwusu's twin brother. His name is Joko Onwusu. So yes, the family is Coco, Loko, and Joko. Unlike his two brothers, Joko Onwusu is not a quarterback. He is actually a safety. A 4-star in this class, the 4th-ranked strong safety. Westlake is in this battle and would love to get him, but it is a tough race with NIU and Ohio in the battle. Neither of those schools are overly big programs, so I'd like to think Westlake should have the inside edge on finishing out the battle. One of Westlake's big pipeline high schools is Burroughs High in Burroughs, Utah, obviously the same town that Westlake plays. There's always a ton of talent on this team. This year it's no different as we take a look at Foyet Akibola, who's a talented running back. He also plays linebacker as well, but I think he'll be playing running back at the next level. Akibola has already committed to Westlake. This is a big, powerful human being, 6'2", 220 pounds. I think he can make an early impact as a power back and eventually could be the long-term bell cow back for Westlake. I think this is a big get for them, and I think he's a really fun player. At quarterback, this kid is only a high school junior, but he's really good. Greg Waters-Key. Now, we've seen Burroughs High produce a lot of very talented quarterbacks. Stephen Westwood, former Burroughs High alum, he was the #1 quarterback in his class. Even last year, C.C. Vaughn, who is now with Westlake, he was the #1 quarterback in his class. Well, many people at Burroughs High believe Greg Waters-Key is a better prospect than both of those two players, which is pretty unbelievable to say, but I mean, Greg Waters-Key is one of the best quarterback prospects in this series, and I think he could be the future of Westlake football once C.C. Vaughn and Anthony Cortez III leave. On the Burroughs High defense, we take a look at Westlake commit Darsheem Brooks Jr. This is the son of former Illinois cornerback Darsheem Brooks Sr. Obviously, if you're an OG, you'll probably remember Darsheem the Dream Bang Bang Brooks. Darsheem Jr. is even bigger than his father. He stands at 6'3", very tall and athletic, long, lean corner. Westlake does not have a lot of depth at the moment in the secondary, so I think Darsheem Brooks Jr. could make a very early impact for Westlake. Now we take a look at Burroughs High's rival, the Ogden Tigers. Ogden is also a big-time pipeline for Westlake. We've seen many great players like Keith Fleming and Irving Porter come out of Ogden High as we take a look at two of their defensive players. The first one being linebacker Kenneth Barker. Barker is also committed to Westlake. As you can see, considering this recruiting special is later in the season than I normally do them, there are a lot of players who have already committed to the school. Barker is a 4-star, the 7th-ranked middle linebacker. He's a tough-nosed football player. And with Westlake's lack of depth at linebacker, I think he can make an early impact. Ogden High is a very talented safety by the name of Pierluigi Savoca, who originally hails from Italy, now playing as the center fielder in the back end of the Tiger defense. Westlake only has 3 safeties on the roster, not including the 50 overall walk-ons from last year. So Hornets know they need to replenish on safeties, and I think Pierluigi Savoca could be a really, really good player. He is the top 3 safety in this class. Currently in tight battle between Westlake, UCLA, and Utah for him. Now we take a look at Ron Davis from Harbor Point, Washington. Davis is the second-ranked athlete in the nation. He is mainly a quarterback, but he's also a very good corner. And I think if Westlake does get him, which it looks like they will, he'll probably play in the secondary. Reminds me a lot of Bob Adams. As you may remember, Adams was a super talented quarterback coming out of high school. He also knew how to play in the secondary. That's where he played in college, and he was outstanding. He just declared for the NFL draft last year after his redshirt sophomore season, and is probably going to be a first or second round pick, and deservedly so. Davis's blindside left tackle is Blake Wilson. Wilson is only a 3-star, but in my opinion, he is the talent of a 5-star and is one of the most underrated players in this class. Wilson is currently the 12th ranked offensive tackle, and a lot of the big programs know that this guy is legit. Army and BYU are currently in a tough battle with Westlake in order to get him. The Hornets could use some more depth on the offensive line, and I think Blake Wilson would be a big, big get. Let's take a look at the state of Illinois. One of my favorite 5-star athletes in this class is Adam Rutledge. Rutledge stands at 6 foot, 227 pounds. He's a thick human being. I suspect he will probably play running back at the next level. I think that's where he's best at currently in high school, and he's one of the top running backs in the nation. Rutledge insta-committed to Westlake very early into the season, so the Hornets have 2 very good true freshman running back coming in Adam Rutledge and Foyet Akibola. There's another good running back in this class who's already committed to Westlake by the name of Tyler Anderson, who we might talk about a little bit later in the video. His teammate on the defensive side of the ball, this is 4-star safety Jamar Johnson, another player who insta-committed to Westlake early in the season. As I mentioned, Westlake does not have a lot of depth at safety, so getting Johnson early in the season was a very big deal for the Hornets. Getting a talented safety who's probably going to have to make an early impact, possibly. Johnson's a very tough, old-school football player. He can lay the boom. Solid in zone coverage as well. I think he's quite well-rounded, pretty athletic as well. He's not the biggest guy, 6 foot 198. He's not big, but he's not overly small either. So I think he's a really intriguing prospect. I'm excited to see his Westlake career pan out. The final school we're going to be looking at is the great IMG Academy of Bradenton, Florida. Westlake has used IMG a lot as a pipeline recently, getting players such as Joe Lilly, Amir Logan, and Jabari Achabe, all of whom are currently starters. This is defensive tackle Derek Berg, another player who committed to Westlake early in the season. The more bodies up the middle, the better. The Hornets could use to get younger at the defensive tackle position. I think getting Derek Berg is a big get. Sticking with the defense, we take a look at cornerback Dominic Porter. Porter is a 4-star athlete. He reminds me a lot of Joe Lilly, who obviously played at IMG a few years ago, now a redshirt sophomore, and he's probably Westlake's best defensive back, so I think Dominic Porter has the upside to make an early impact like that. Porter is a low lock guy. It seems like not a lot of teams have caught on to him yet, except for Westlake, and because of that, he should go to the Hornets. I have decided to save my favorite player in this class for last. I would like to introduce you guys to the freak show of tight end Mustafa Achabe. This is the younger brother of Westlake true freshman pass rusher Jabari Achabe. We know that Jabari Achabe is a freak athlete. Well, what if I told you this kid is even freakier? 6'9", 227-pound tight end. As you can expect, he's a basketball background. He does play basketball for the IMG Academy Ascenders. This guy's a freak athlete. He runs a 4.4 40-yard dash for his size. Jump ball machine. He has an incredible stiff arm, and he's not half bad of a blocker. I have no clue how he's a 3-star. I think he is the best tight end prospect Westlake has come across in their 15 years of existence. I am extremely high on Mustafa Achabe, and I absolutely love him. So that will conclude the first portion of today's recruiting special. Let's take an in-depth look at the board itself. No quarterbacks, although there are a few athletes who can play quarterback. At running back, there are 3 players. We talked about Foyet Akibola, but there are 2 other guys. Tyler Anderson is already committed. He's a well-rounded back. And Henry Hudson, who is more of a power back. He'll probably commit to Westlake as well. And remember, there's athlete Adam Rutledge, who's also already committed. So that's 4 players who can play running back. Maybe Adam Rutledge won't play running back at the next level just because there are so many in this class. No wide receivers. Westlake is not going after receivers this year because they have too goddamn many. At tight end, we talked about Mustafa Achebe. As I mentioned, this kid is incredible. He's my favorite player in this recruiting class, and Westlake has to pull out all the stops in order to get him. If they don't get him, however, there is a good consolation prize in Kajante Winston. Winston is not quite the freak athlete that Achebe is, but he's still a very solid prospect. At offensive tackle, we talked about Blake Wilson. He is a gem, very well-rounded player. I think Westlake has to really prioritize him. At guard, there's Gary Schmidt. He's going to Troy. And then at center, a recently added low lock guy in Dion McCoy. Hopefully Westlake gets him. At defensive end, there are two Burmester High players who we did not talk about, but who are very solid. Those guys are Slavko Savic and Keon Norman Luna. These two prospects are very different. Savic is more of a power rusher, more of a traditional defensive lineman. Norman Luna, on the other hand, is more of that new style finesse rusher. Savic is pretty much a lock to come to Westlake. Norman Luna, however, is in a tougher battle. Kyle Callahan, also a talented defensive end who Westlake is going after. He's a little bit more well-rounded, but isn't great at any one particular thing. And then Kenny Brown could be a good depth player down the line. Two defensive tackles. The first one, Gary Lane. Westlake is not really going after him, but maybe they should because he looks like a good player. And then obviously Derek Berg, who committed to Westlake very early in the recruiting process. I think he could have a very bright future with this team. Good power rusher. I think he needs to improve a little bit as a run stopper. And he does have some athleticism to his game. I think he's really solid. An outside linebacker, only one currently. That is Michael Romer. He's an athletic edge rusher, tough battle with Westlake and Stanford. Romer's well-rounded. As I said, he can get after a quarterback. He can also be productive in coverage. At middle linebacker, only one guy here. We talked about him earlier. This is Kenneth Barker, who already committed to the team. He's a very good cover linebacker, tough hitter, smart football player. I think he needs to improve a little bit as a run stopper, but if he can, I think he'll be really good. Westlake is going after 5 corners because, well, they need corner pretty bad. We talked about Darsheen Brooks. He's only a 3-star, but at 6'3", 210, I really like his skill set, and I think Westlake is getting a great player in Brooks. The only problem with the cornerback position is I'm not convinced that any of the other corners in this class are going to commit, and that's why I didn't talk about them. Khalil Onobanjo is one of the best players on Westlake's recruiting board at the moment, and the Hornets are second in this battle, so it looks like they have a realistic shot. And as you can see, this kid is a stud. Great athleticism, great in man, great in zone. I think he'd make an impact as a true freshman if Westlake gets him. The Hornets cannot offer him a visit, though, because he already has 5 visits scheduled. This was kind of similar to Champ Britton all the way back in Season 2. The Hornets couldn't offer him a visit. Then Nebraska backed out. Westlake was able to get Britton in for a late visit, and they ended up getting him. I don't think that same thing will happen with Onobanjo, but hopefully. Randy Powell, another tough situation. Westlake is really struggling in this battle. We're probably going to have to break a lock on him, which is fine, but it's going to be hard to get him. And then Kevin Fields. Westlake is not putting any points into him because I think this battle is already lost. The Hornets are still in it. They're only 770 points behind first place, but they've already had him for a visit. So I think of these top 3 corners, I think if Westlake gets one of them, that would be great, but I don't know how realistic that is. There's also Ed Jenkins, who's a good backup plan, I suppose. At 3 safety, we talked about Pierluigi Savoca, the best 3 safety in this class. Great zone coverage. He's a hard hitter, pretty athletic, very tight race between Westlake, UCLA, and Utah. I could see any of these 3 teams landing him. So hopefully for Westlake's sake, it ends up being them rather than him going to one of their rivals. 2 strong safeties on the board. Obviously, we talked about Jamar Johnson, who is already committed. He's a good player, good zone coverage. He's a solid run support safety as well. He's just well-rounded. There's not one thing he does particularly well, but he's an all-around good player. And then, of course, Loko Onwusu. Westlake is winning in this battle, but it's far from a lock. He's not as good in run support as Jamar Johnson, but I do think he is a little bit more rangier in coverage. He's also a very hard hitter. Although Westlake is winning, they are the only team in this battle who have already had him come in for a visit, so this is really anyone's race with the Hornets, NIU, and Ohio. There are currently 2 kickers on Westlake's recruiting board, and James Simpson, who is the 2nd-ranked kicker, and Tate Sullivan, who's the 5th-ranked kicker. Westlake knows they need to prepare for life after Zebediah Phoenix II, who is now a junior. No punters and 5 athletes, 2 commits and 3 low lock guys. We did not talk about Eugene Hill. I don't really know what his role would be. Maybe something in the secondary. I don't think he's quite a running back. I don't think he's quite a receiver. I'm curious to see what his run-stopping ratings are. I maybe think he could be an undersized linebacker, possibly. But my best guess is that Eugene Hill will probably play somewhere in the secondary. He is a 5-star. I think he's a little bit overrated, but I do think he is a talented player and should be a good fit for Westlake. And then Adam Rutledge, a player we talked about. I'm a big fan of this kid. He can also play in the secondary. He's also an okay receiver, but I just think he is best fit at running back. I could see him playing corner or safety, but his best natural position is running back. And then 3 athletes who've recently been added on the board as low lock guys. We talked about Ron Davis and Dominic Porter. Davis is an elite athlete. He's a great quarterback prospect, but he's also a very good corner prospect. As I said, reminds me a lot of Bob Adams coming out of high school a few years ago. If Davis plays as good as Bob Adams did in his short collegiate career, then this would be a gigantic get for the Westlake Hornets. I'm surprised, even though he's a 5-star, that nobody is really interested in him. Dominic Porter. This is a battle Westlake should win, barring something crazy. Porter can also play quarterback, but I think he's more of a defensive back. He could also be a very good receiver as well. I think these athletes who have not committed are a lot more well-rounded than the 2 who have committed. And then there's Mike Williamson. We did not talk about him, but he is an interesting low-lock guy. Vanderbilt has hopped on the wagon, too, so this will be a tough race for Westlake and Vanderbilt. I think Williamson is probably a wide receiver. I know I said Westlake would not be going after any wide receivers this year, but Williamson is an athlete, not a receiver, although that's where I do think he will play at the next level. So I hope you guys enjoyed a very fun potential recruiting class. There are a lot of really good young players in here. And if Westlake loses a very large chunk of their team in the offseason like they did last year, I think there's a good shot a lot of these young guys play early. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Peace out.